welcome back to another episode of the Circle of Knowledge podcast, brought to you by Champion Circle Networking Association. My name is John Kovac Jr., the host and founder and chairman of Champion Circle and the podcast that you are listening to right now, Circle of Knowledge. You guys, we started this podcast in 2016. Two of my friends and partners in business, we huddled around a small microphone in the basement closet of their house and started recording episodes where we were reading books and talking about the things we were learning and extracting pieces of knowledge that we thought were important to the world, but also just little nuggets, little tips, little hacks and tricks and tips and things that you could use to power through life, to overcome your business challenges, and to find ways to mastermind excellent resources in your life. I'm here today as we took a 2-week break as I celebrated my wife's birthday. We went to Cancun, Mexico, where we were able to celebrate her 29th birthday, which was pretty fun. I also took the opportunity to propose on a surprising date on her birthday, which was at 2:22 p.m. on February 22nd, which is 222 on the year of 2022. It was quite exciting. She had no idea, and we had some fun. It was a really great time, and she had never been to Cancun, so that was a really exciting trip. So we are back on top of our schedule, and we've got a full, awesome opportunity today to learn from amazing professionals. Given that, I just want to make a huge shout out to Eric Swanson and the Habitude Warrior conference masterminds and groups, who is leading the charge also in the current 13 Steps to Riches project, which is our book project. And I always have a copy here next to me. The 13 Steps to Riches is the accumulation of the steps that Napoleon Hill teaches in his book, Think and Grow Rich. And I happen to be also a featured author in this series. And we have book 5, volume number 5, already in pre-sales, a #1 bestseller coming out in it's March 4th, so it comes out in 11 days. March 15th is our launch date, so go check out that on Amazon. Will also be available in bookstores such as Barnes & Noble and more. Really excited to introduce you to one of our guest speakers today. Today you're going to learn from Terry Begue. And Terry started his painting business fresh out of high school with no money, no experience, and no connections. And it failed miserably, he says. He was refusing to give up, though, and he began perfecting his people skills, and his business blew up. Today, Terry is an international speaker and author of Attract and Keep Customers for Life: 4 abilities to build trust, communicate your value, and charge what you're worth. I love this. I'm actually dedicating 2022 to learning the processes of sales, communication, and relationships. And I have just been consuming books and books and books on this topic. So I'm really excited to learn from Terry. And I'm also just really, really pumped up to have him share some knowledge with y'all. Terry lives in Hartville, Ohio, with his wife of 44 years, Lisa. Oh my gosh, that is amazing. And he has a son and a daughter, and is a proud grandfather of 3. Well, this man has definitely seen some awesomeness in his life. And we were just talking backstage about how, 44 years of business and work, and how it's just so impressive to know people who are able to carry on and to keep up the spirit of awesomeness as they work through their work. Let me introduce you guys and bring to the stage Mr. Terry Begue. Terry, thank you for joining me on the podcast. How are you today? And how are you feeling? 44 years of business, that's incredible.
Oh, I'm feeling great, John. Thanks so much for having me on the show. And the sun's out today. Actually, when I get finished with this podcast, I'm giving some bids. Even though it's winter time still here in Ohio, I get calls almost every day for work. And the reason I'm excited about that, I want to get ahead of myself, is I don't advertise. Everything comes in from either word of mouth or referral. Best business in any business, right?
amazing. And I've got a list of questions to talk to you about that and to dive in, because I know that many of our listeners do own their own businesses. They're working in their own jobs. They've started their plumbing business, their painting business, their contractor's business, and some of them are working on more of a product-based business. They're inventing, they're creating, they're delivering. But we'll get into that. But let's get to know you first. Obviously, I read your impressive bio, and I actually had a lot of fun reading that. But I know that the listeners are anxious to hear from your voice. Could you tell us a little bit about that beginning story, the upbringing of Terry starting his painting business right out of high school and then failing miserably and moving on? And how did you get here? The main question is, and I'm going to give you the mic for 5 minutes or so, but tell us a little bit about that journey and how you got here today.
Yeah, absolutely. I love telling this story actually, and I always feel like I'm talking too long. So giving me 5 minutes, it shouldn't take that long. But when I started, as I mentioned, while I was in high school, I had an older brother who was putting himself through college, so he was painting houses, knew a little bit more than me, and I worked a few summers with him. But I realized after that, I'd taken a couple of jobs right around my senior year in high school and shortly after, and I just could not I couldn't do it. It wasn't that I was lazy or I got fired. It's just I didn't stick around very long. What I realized, it took me a while to figure this out, is I had that entrepreneurial attitude, I guess you would say, and I just couldn't have somebody telling me what to do. I wanted to be in charge, and it just didn't work for me. So as soon as I got out of high school, I knew what I wanted to do, and that was to own a painting business. And painting only because it was the only thing I'd ever done. I knew you could get started with little money, which I had little money, and so I jumped right in. But one of the mistakes I made is I didn't ask for any help. I tried to figure everything out on my own. I was sort of bullheaded, and I married my wife at a very young age. I was just 21 and she was 19 when we got married. And I made a lot of big promises to her. I said, I'm a business owner now. Things are going to be good. We're going to live a good life. And I failed miserably. I mean, I'm talking 6 months after we got married, I was rolling pennies to buy her a Christmas present. It was that sad. And for years after that, I felt like I was just one lost job from going bankrupt. We were living in a crappy little one-bedroom apartment, and it was really tough. And maybe that's why I push so hard still now, because it was so rough on me in those early years, I guess. Not sure. I think I could spend some time with a psychologist. I'm sure they can help me get a little more clear on that. But the funny, some people say they know the year their life changed, or the summer, or the week, or even the hour, but I can tell you the very moment everything changed for me. And it was when I came home one day from work, exhausted, working long hours for a contractor who was, barely getting by, and found my wife on the couch with tears in her eyes. Never a good sign, right? And I said, what's wrong? And she just had three little words for me that changed everything in my life. And they weren't, I love you, or even get to work. They were, Terry, I'm pregnant.
Oh,
And
wow.
I can't explain it, but it was like a switch had flipped in my brain. All of a sudden, this rotten lifestyle that I was living and pulling her through was just no longer going to cut it, now that we had a child coming into the world. And even though I didn't really learn anything new, I changed one thing. I took action on everything that was going to happen. The first thing we do is we sat down and we wrote out a list of what our life was going to look like. And that included things like a new house, and doubling or tripling my income is what it was going to take to do that, and do it all before our son was born. And I got really, really busy. I changed everything. The first thing I did is I quit all the contractors I was working for, and I changed my customer base out quickly. But long story short, let's fast forward just 8 or 9 months. My son's a few weeks old. We had just moved into our 3-bedroom brand new house. I had double my income in that time, and doubled it again over that next year. And everything we had dreamed about happened after that. And I know you're probably wanting to know what I did, but I'd like to just tell that story part for now. And my changing point, though, is when I just decided to start taking action.
Brilliant. I felt like you've done this before. You've caught us up on the life story, and we're almost to the present, which is amazing. I know that many listeners are probably dying to figure out, like, how did you do it? How did you overcome that? But I want to tackle that pregnancy conversation, because that that is a huge realization. I've seen it in human beings, and I've experienced it through watching family and so forth. But I just know that when you realize, oh man, we're bringing a child into this world, there's a flip of a switch, and you realize I am no longer able to be as reckless or as it's as indecisive, or even just
Mhm.
like as infrugal. I'll use that word. I don't even know if that's a real word, but with your
Mhm.
time and with your management and with your resources, and
Mhm.
that's a huge, excuse me, that's a huge realization.
It was a scary time in my life, and the only thing I knew to do was get proactive. And
Wow.
even I mean, I took so much action, John. It's gonna sound crazy that even the wrong action to me was better than no action at all. Because for so many years in my life, those first 8 or so years, I was just reacting to what life gave me, and not thinking about it, or even to having the initiative to look at what I could do to change things. And once you change and look at life that way, like you have control over what happens next month, next week, next year, and you can turn things around. And sometimes I talk about it being more like a marathon than a sprint. For me, it all changed really fast, and it was just because I had this fearless attitude, and I just went forward.
That's brilliant. I, I think that many people don't recognize. I mean, there's so much fear in creating goals, because
Mhm.
there's so many methods and there's so many modalities on creating goals for your life. And what happens in this process is people, they know the basics, right? They learn, oh, I got to have a smart goal.
Mhm.
It's got to be specific, measurable, all of that stuff,
Mhm.
right? And then they start jazzing themselves out of being able to accomplish their goal because of the perfection necessary in the process. But I've learned, and I think you'll agree with me on this, Terry, is that when you are fighting, when you are just like scrambling, and you're searching and scratching for a solution and a resource that will either help you win, like you said, taking action, even if it was the wrong action, was better than doing nothing, is
Mhm.
very, very valuable, because it is human nature to be able to find the strength within, the willpower, we'll say, to create solutions and to overcome challenges. And that's refreshing. It's really refreshing to hear.
Part of it too, I should say too, is my attitude at the time was when you're at the bottom, if you're taking chances, you don't have far to fall if they don't work out. And that's the way I looked at it. I was already at the bottom. Why not take some risks? You know?
Oh, I absolutely love that. That's a great soundbite. I'm gonna definitely use that one.
It's horrible. I hate having to say it, but that is where my life was. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Well, let's fast forward to the future, obviously, or I
Mhm.
guess the present, where we're at today. Thank you for sharing your amazing story. Uh, Business today, what's it like? What's going on, and how are you thriving? Is it going well? Did you guys do well during the pandemic? Tell us a little bit about your business today.
Sure. Just to mention the pandemic real quick, I was afraid we were going to get shut down, but for some reason we were considered essential, and my business blew up. I mean, my business today, before the pandemic, I was getting 25 to 30 houses booked ahead during the summertime. And but we turn them over really quick. And during the pandemic, it went to more like 45 or 50 because people had extra money. They couldn't go on vacation too much, and they were putting it into their homes. So I was at the right place at the right time, I guess. Maybe that was the higher powers way of paying me back for those early years, but those were all my fault. So I don't even want to go there with that. And but today my business is insanely successful, and I know the things that I talk about are working, that I put into my book, because for me, proving it is the fact that I haven't advertised since 2012. So it's been 10 years since I've run any advertising, done any marketing, and my business still continues to grow today. It's crazy. It's almost counterintuitive, you would think. But certain things that I do, like niching, the more narrow I create for a niche, the more people want me to. Another thing that I think is counterintuitive, but they're things I had to go through to figure out on my own. And everything in my book, I say nothing's theory. It's all things, mistakes that I made, and times I got lucky, maybe a little bit.
Well, I'm already sold. I can't wait to pick up a copy of your book, and I encourage my listeners to do so as well. After I read it, I'll do a little what we call the knowledge moment on the podcast, and I definitely will share some things and insights. But
Great.
while we have you, which is amazing, I want to dive just a little bit deeper into the business part because I know what my listeners are probably asking and thinking, and then I want to jump into your book, and then we'll talk about
Sure.
some knowledge. But
Mhm.
the business side, you go from broke out of high school student, merely failing. Wife says I'm pregnant. Gotta work hard. Gotta fix things. Gotta do something and change your life around. Now, a lot of my listeners are probably thinking, "What's the how? What's the why?" And without divulging your secrets or telling all the steps, there's obviously something that clicked, and you created some sort of scalability. You created a business model that was more effective, more efficient, so that you were able to tend to children at home, be
Mhm.
available, bring income in. My question to you is what was one or maybe a couple keys to scalability and success to allow you to still maintain fathership, but
Sure.
to own and run and adequately operate a successful business?
Okay, and that is a great question. I'll try to answer it quickly, but for me, it was putting things into a system, and there were two different times in my life that I created a system. The first one that was at that time was I looked around, I talked to a ton of painters and business owners, and I discovered that if I just keep working by myself, then I'm just trading dollars for hours. I can't leverage my time that way. So I hired some guys, two or three, four at one time they were my friends. I didn't know anyone else, and I made them into painters, more or
Wow.
less. I had gone through it, but it didn't help to have them if I didn't have a system for turning jobs over very quickly. So by talking to other painters, seeing what's going on around me, I learned there's certain types of painting. For us, it was spraying aluminum sided homes and cedar sided homes. And once we started masking and spraying, all of a sudden, a job that took a week to do, we were doing in a day. When I first hired those guys, the very first week, I thought I had a week's worth of work set up, and we were done by Tuesday afternoon with everything. So, creating this system and this process was one step, and the second one is getting out there so people knew who I was. And the way it worked out for me is I went into a home and garden show, several of them actually, and joined a couple of professional associations like NARI, National Association of the Remodeling Industry, and those are things that got me out there, separated me out from my competition because no painters were doing home and garden shows. And to this day, I don't think I've ever seen any besides me where I'm at here, anyways. So it was a great way to stand out. And then the second thing, though, once I had the system down, I'm thinking all of a sudden, oh my gosh, having three or four or five houses ready to go is just not going to be enough. So I had to find a way to connect with my customers to change my closing ratio. And because I was only closing maybe one or two or three out of 10, and I
Wow.
had to change it quick, but I created a system for getting people to say yes, for building trust, where I turned it into 8 out of 10. And next thing I know, I had 20, 25 houses booked ahead. And like, as I mentioned during the pandemic, that turned more into 45. And that was the next step, was finding a system for creating customers that will say yes to doing business with me. So it was about building trust very quickly. And that's what my book is about. A process, what I call the four abilities. You had to be likable to your customers. So likability, then believability, then trustability, and then wowability. So that was the four abilities that keep my pipeline full to this day, to where I don't ever advertise. I don't have to, because there's so many people want to hire us for my services.
That's amazing. I'm so interested and so fascinated, and just wanted to say, I mean, I don't know if you've heard it enough from friends, family, or peers and colleagues, but congratulations. Like, wow, what a perspective to take your challenges, to learn from them, to research and to collaborate, and then to turn that into the the personal success that you were needing to fulfill the life you're looking for.
Mm.
That's phenomenal. And the strategies and tactics that you just elicited, I'm really excited to read into those, to dive deep into that. That's amazing. Thank you for answering that question.
Sure.
The next question I would ask then is as you're now working through the job and building, I'm curious, having been in
Mhm.
business for 44 years, how often are you out there actually painting, or are you able to run this business where you've got teams and people, and you've got really great people out there set up so you can just manage it from an office, or what's that look like?
Okay. Well, I guess this is where it probably seems a little bit different because with my business, I easily, with the amount of work that I can get and afford to set up second and third crews, I'm just by myself
Okay.
with my crew. I mean, just one company. At one time, I had two crews, and even three for part of a summer. And honestly, I probably could have made it work. Maybe I'm not a good leader, I guess, but I wanted to be right there with my customers. I found if I just choose the very best, easiest, highest paying jobs with the best customers, that I was able, almost my bottom line came down almost the same as when I had two crews because there
Wow.
were things I couldn't control. And right now, with the hiring situation the way it is, it's hard to find people to work. So part of it, though, too, is I still love what I do. I'm still on the job every day with my guys, but I do step away to to run the business too. But really, it looks more like 60 and 70-hour weeks to do both. But it's mostly, um, I guess, a passion project for me. I love doing it. It doesn't bother. I don't feel like I'm working when I'm doing all this extra work. And I guess that's been the big difference for me is going through all of that. If I had to try a second crew and a third crew before I saw if it was going to work, and I could have probably made it work, but I was just more comfortable if things are like they are. I mean, now after 44 years, I'm 64, 3 years old, and for me, I don't want to get bigger. I just want to make it. I'm on autopilot. I want to keep it more that way. Just I have great relationships with my customers, and they refer me, and they use me over and over, and it's a nice place to be. So I like it there.
I love this answer, Terry, because you know, based on unpopular opinion, the gentleman on Wall Street would argue and say,
Mhm.
scalability is all about
Yeah.
reproducing and duplicating yourself and stepping out of the. But your answer, and this is what I gather from it is, I want to continue to be there with my customers. I want to
Mhm.
be in the in the trenches, and that speaks just volumes of who you are, what your attitude is, and how you take care of people. And it just, in my opinion, it's a greater answer than the ones who said, yeah, we hired out teams, we quickly scaled, and we make 6 7 8 figures a year. And it just, I love your answer, so thank you for that and your
Mhm.
honesty. and
Sure.
and wow, I envy your strength. I mean, at at your age, you're able to still go out and still work and be there with everybody and be with your teams. It sounds like your customers just love you as well as your team. That's really cool.
I like to think so. I don't know. I'm always checking in, and that's a big thing is always be questioning your customers to make sure you're all on the same page. And with my crew, I've had other podcasters ask me, how do you get along with your crew? How is it that you all understand each other? And for me, is we talk every day. I mean, the first thing we do when we go onto a job, which a lot of times it's a new job every day because we turn them over so quickly. The first thing we do is we walk around the house. I introduce them to the owners if they're there, and that way they're more engaged with the job. And we're always all on the same page. What the goal is, what the level of satisfaction that we're trying to get to is. So it does keep things on track. And maybe that's one of the reasons I couldn't grow my business with more crews is because I couldn't spread myself that thin. But really, the bottom line is I know I could have. I just wasn't comfortable doing it. So,
Fantastic. Well, let's shift gears here, and I'd like to kind of pour into you and ask if what's a piece of knowledge, a nugget of knowledge that you would like to share with my audience to
mhm.
help them understand a principle, maybe a lesson or something that you've learned over these years, or just one lesson that you can share with them that they can take away with them today. And then obviously we'll lead into whatever we want them to do with that knowledge. So we want them to take action. But I'd like to give you the floor. And what's a nugget of knowledge you could share with them that they should know?
Sure, it's just a question for me of which one, because in my book, it's really 6 chapters, those 4 abilities, and then I talk about personal branding in the front and the power of testimonials in the back. And in each one of those, there's 8 or 10 of those little nuggets. But the one I'm thinking about my book, the one I probably repeat the most in the book is focus first on your people skills. It'll speed your success faster than your technical skills. My customers, I don't tell them we're the best painter out there, or and they know I'm not the cheapest because if we're going to do less houses, I want to make more money. And they know I'm probably the highest one. Most do, but they hire me anyways because they want to be able to make the comfortable choice. So where was I going with that? Your people skills. Um, I think we do the best job out there, but I know a lot of other painters that when I look back at a job that they've done, it looks just as good as ours. And so it's hard to stand out with your technical skills if the goal is to stand out, but in your people skills, it's much easier. And those are the things that caused my business to really take off. Sitting down with the customer. If at the time, those early years, I didn't drink coffee, but when I was giving a bid, if they asked me if I wanted a cup of coffee, I sat down because it gave me a chance to talk to them and connect with them. Little things like commonality. I let them see that I live in the same town as them. I have kids just like they do, because people tend to do business with people who are more like them. So I would give them little views into my life, call it transparency, I guess, about building trust. But the biggest thing I probably would say, if you held me to just one thing, is focus more on your people skills than you do on your technical skills. You need both, but I found it's the people skills that have caused my business to go crazy, off the charts successful.
That's amazing. I love this answer. We've had multiple conversations on this show about how to approach people, how to maintain relationships, and so forth. I can't wait to dive into the book. I'll just keep saying that. But what's of that knowledge, and I know that there's so many principles to choose from, but of that knowledge, what is something you could challenge my listeners to take immediate action on today? Because information and knowledge is useless if we don't use it for good and do something with it. So what's something that you could challenge them to take action on?
An actionable item. I'm going to go to my chapter on wowability, okay, which I call referability for the
Okay.
most part. It's blowing customers away with service. What I would challenge them to do, if they don't have testimonials or they're not using them, call up a couple of your best customers. I mean, if you treated them right, they'll be happy to say a few nice things about you, and get a couple of testimonials and start using them either in your marketing or even in your sales presentation. I have a list I used to hand my customers. I don't so much anymore. But if you go to my website, at my painting website, that is, they can click on testimonials, and there's 70 or 80 or maybe 100 of them on there, of customers just like them who love what we do, and they talk about it, the things that they love about us. And when people see that other people like them have had a good experience, and they see dozens and dozens of those, it makes it easier to sell the job. A lot of them are sold before they ever even talk to me. If they call me for an estimate, I'll say something like, have you been to my website? And if they haven't, I said, well, check us out at beguepainting.com. And if I know if they have, because they're usually already sold by the time we meet, if they've looked at our website, and I have a lot of video testimonials there as well, probably even more powerful. If you can get those. So call up a few customers. And if you're brand new to business and you don't even have any customers, there's nothing wrong with getting a personal recommendation. You could go to maybe the minister in town, or a business owner that you just have a connection with, somebody who can speak to your good character, to get those first. Maybe work for a relative and just let them know, hey, I'm doing this at a discounted rate, but I'm really looking for a great testimonial. So let me blow you away with service, and then help me tell the world about it.
Fantastic. I'm eating this up. My notes are flying off the table here. I wanted to put your website up in our chat section, and it looks like we got it. Okay, there we go. And I have the one that you have, which is terrybegue.com. If you want to go check out Terry, he's a great speaker. Obviously, you can hear from his voice. He's very, very well voiced and profound in his words, and he knows what he's saying. He's also an author, so go pick up a copy of his book. And remind me the title of your book. That way we can send them that direction.
Sure. It's called Attract and Keep Customers for Life. And that's it. But if you go to Amazon, what I want to say, you'll pay, it's like 14 something for the book, I think. But right now, here's another URL, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you go to the number 4, the4abilities.com, you could get my book for free, because I just created an expanded edition, and we want to celebrate that. And we came out with a new course, and in order to do that, I'm just charging. It costs shipping and handling. So if it's in the United States, it's going to be $5 or $6. Outside of the United States, it's about twice that. But the book is free. Just pay shipping and handling. But that's at the4abilities.com.
Wow. That's very generous, and very exciting too, to celebrate a new edition and to go forth. That's amazing. Let me put that up here in the chat section. Team's got it. Perfect. We'll bring that up. So the
Great.
4abilities.com.
Yes.
Amazing.
And that's what the book is all about, those 4 abilities, but it's those 4 things that have caused my business to not ever need to advertise again. And and still, I should mention, I still turn away almost as many jobs as I take, because when I mentioned to you I wanted to just narrow the focus, we try to just do everybody calls us about painting, but I say I'm sorry, and I feel bad when it's a past customer, but I say I'm sorry, but because of the demand for our services, I change it on my answering machine. I say, because of the demand, I'm only able to take aluminum and cedar sided homes right now. I'm so sorry about that. But I hate to just say no without recommending them to somebody else. So I always try to find other painters who do those things and send them to those people.
I think what my listeners are probably in awe of right now, Terry, is that you're a genuine human being. You care about people, your customers, you care about the interactions. And this is a really cool and fascinating concept, because for most people who had to jump into the trenches of their business to scale it, to grow it, to be where they want to be, they've made moves, they've made sacrifices, they've made different decisions that have either sacrificed or eliminated things that they love about their life and job, and they've had to do so in order to acquire that wealth and experience. But you have found a really, really great way, and these 4 abilities obviously are guiding your life. It reminds me, and I have to share this with you, and I'll behind the scenes, I'll share with you an episode. You might want to listen to it, but you reminded me so much with your story and who you are of a conversation on the Ken Coleman show. Ken Coleman is one of the Dave Ramsey personalities. He has a show where he coaches people through their careers, and he interviews an individual who's the founder of one of the top 5-star hotels in LA. And it's not what you would think. It's this hotel that looks kind of grungy on the outside, and it's not really the greatest atmosphere. It's kind of on the edge of downtown. It's not that cool of an environment, but the customer service is out the door, and people are signed up for a year in advance to stay at this hotel, and it's fascinating. But his story reminds me of your story, because you love people, you love your customers, and you take care of them. You're interested in them, and you're so personable, and you're honest, and you're taking care. I'll send you the episode. It's such a cool comparison, but you reminded me so much of this amazing business owner out of LA, and here you are running an amazing painting business, and I was just excited to make that comparison, so wanted to share that with you.
I'm flattered. Thank you so much. I'll have to check that out too. I would love to hear that podcast. So
I think you'll find it fascinating, and then you'll be like, "Oh, you missed step 4 of my 4 abilities, because there's something else you could be doing. You could make them $1 million. Who knows?"
Right? Yeah. Oh, that's funny. I forgot. I was going to say something about in reference to that, but one of the things I just added to my book I wanted to say is the bottom line is what we lose. And I talk about how customers are lost and what it costs to get one back. That's part of the new stuff I put in. But I kind of summarize all that with saying the bottom line is you start losing customers when you stop loving them. It's plain and simple, and that's really it. And I don't mean to go crazy with all of this, but I don't think you can do too much when it comes to that sort of thing. And my book is just filled with ways to do that without going over the top, I guess, and looking almost like a strange, I don't know, scaring people away maybe if they're doing too much. But I think it's a nice mix. And then the things that I just added to the book with the new edition is things about why customers leave and how to get them back, things like that. Kind of taking it to the next step if something bad happens.
That's amazing. Quick rapid fire questions before we close this up.
Okay.
Do your customers know that you're an author, and do they know that you have written a book about your experience and how to work with them?
Not really. Sometimes I like it. I do have, if I send an email to them, like a proposal in an email, below my signature line, it says author of Attract and Keep Customers for Life. But I really haven't done anything big. My local newspaper did a story on it.
Oh,
So
cool.
some of them do, but probably maybe half at the most. But the ones that do find out about it, that are getting bids from other painters, they always go with us. They say, this guy wrote a book about this. So So no, I'd say maybe half of them do.
Awesome. And I know my audience is just curious. What's your favorite book other than your own? What's your favorite book?
Probably, Think and Grow Rich. I would
Really?
have to say that. I think one of the old classics. When I was making those changes, that's when I started reading those books back there. I know they look like trophies, but they remind me of that time, and everything in those books I've used in my business. But I think a lot of it started with Think and Grow Rich. I would think. Yeah, I think so. No
I
one's
am.
ever asked me that before.
I'm glad to be a little bit different. I'll turn my camera over and you can just see
It looks like mine.
we've got a
Oh,
library. I've color coded because of my ADHD, but I would definitely say that they do become trophies, but they become part of you, and I
yeah.
love that and agree with that. Thank you for sharing that, and
Sure.
Terry, I can't say it enough. Thank you for being on our show. A breath of fresh air, and I have so many more testimonials and reviews I'd like to share with you that I can do in written form and video form. But I want to sing praises to what you do and how you do it. I just appreciate your genuinity. And I know that through the voice and through the podcast platform, people are going to feel that and listen to it and understand it and go grab a copy of your book. And I know that we'll make a difference in the world. So thank you for doing that. Thank you for being you, and just sharing total gratitude, and wanted to highlight you in that way. Very, very impressive. Very, very excited. And I'm grateful for this episode myself.
Geez, I am too. I'm grateful for the opportunity to meet you. I love doing podcasts because I get to occasionally meet people like you, John. And I don't know what to say, but thank you so much. And if I could ever, do anything to help in any way with a podcast and follow up or anything like that, just let me know. Be happy to.
Fantastic. Well, I'll reach out to you after I grab a copy of your book, finish it, and
Great.
I'll want to talk about it because there's some cool stuff in here. To my listeners, again, you want to get a hold of or learn about or even just reach out to Terry, you can go to his website. It's terrybegue.com. Begue is Begue, just as it sounds. Wink, wink. And you could also, if you want to check out his painting business, it sounds like they've got a very little room for more business, but they are always on fire. And if you're in the Ohio area, then you can reach out to Terry or beguepainting.com. And then again, Terry was gracious enough to share with us a free link to his book, which they've updated. Go to the4abilities.com to get Terry's book for free. And thank you for offering that. Thank you, my friend. I'm excited. I'm going to hit the outro, but just want to welcome everybody and thank you for joining us on the Circle of Knowledge podcast.